IB Nation Sports Talk up and rolling on this Thursday. Hope you're having a good one, along with Jesse Stiers. I am Sean Stiers, and we've got a lot to talk about today, my friend. I hope you're ready for some pro day stuff.
I am. It was hard to concentrate at work today. There was a lot going on. Just basically after my birthday this week, I have not had any interest in working, and then today being Notre Dame's pro day and the start of the March Madness, there was a lot going on to distract me. So today was a nice and easy day.
USMA 87 and Dobry Dien to you as well, my friend. We were talking a little Russian on last night's show, and USMA said he took a little Russian when he was at the military academy at West Point back in the day. So he went a little Dobry Dien. Good day to you, sir.
No one
Jesse's
else
like,
can
I
make
don't.
that.
Jesse's like, I don't care. He had his Cyrillic. He had his Cyrillic up there as well. So, all right. Well, little announcement for at least the foreseeable future. If you're used to going to irishbreakdown.com for articles and those kind of things, you've probably heard that there are some things going on with Sports Illustrated in terms of the sale of Sports Illustrated and all that, and the rights to who's doing what. For the foreseeable future, if you want written content, you're going to have to go to the Champions Lounge to get it. And I can't go into a ton more detail than that, but we literally just had a meeting, Brian and I, right before the show started about that. So if you want any of the written content, whether it's recruiting stuff or whatever, you're going to have to be a subscriber of the Champions Lounge for at least the next few days as we get a few different things worked out with what's going on with that. So there's some things kind of being worked on right now. Big pro day today over at Notre Dame. I think we all kind of knew, the biggest thing we were looking at in all this was Audric Estimé and his 40 time after his sort of so-so 40 time at the NFL Combine last month. But some notables in attendance today. We'll talk about these guys a little bit more in detail in a little bit. But Dallas Cowboys head coach Mike McCarthy, Washington Commanders head coach Dan Quinn. The only head coaches in attendance today, you had Brian Gutekunst, the GM of the Green Bay Packers. Adam Peters, GM of the Commanders, was also there. And Will McClay, who's not the general manager, but the director of player personnel, I believe, is his official title because with the Dallas Cowboys, because Jesse, we know who the official GM of the Dallas Cowboys is.
Correct.
So, yes. That's right. Okay, so again, the biggest question today was Audric Estimé. Could he bring his 40 time down from the 4.71 that he ran at the Combine? He turned in an official time of 4.58. Now, notable that I had him, I timed him on my phone, far from official, and I tweeted about it, 4.54. But there was someone else sitting right next to me, a guy named Jake Arthur, who works for the Indianapolis Colts SI site. And I actually met him a few years ago down at Indianapolis Colts training camp, but I went down to cover Quentin Nelson after he had been drafted that year. But he was right next to me. He had his phone out. He timed it 4.54 as well. I think the biggest thing is it's under 4.6. So how big do you think this is for Audric Estimé, Jess?
I think this is massive for Audric Estimé because, coming out of the draft, the biggest thing was his speed, and his basically the 4.7 didn't match up kind of the speed that was on display in his film. And so when he was able to run this, 4.5 sub 4.5, it basically validates what teams were seeing on the film because he looked a lot faster on film than what his 40 time was indicating coming out of Indianapolis. So I just think it answers a lot of questions or calms a lot of nerves of why, his 40 time didn't match kind of the film essentially.
Yeah. Running a a 4.7 was never going to like kill Audric Estimé's career by any means. He was still going to get drafted and he would still be able to show what he could do. But running a 4.58, it puts him back into that second round range, I think, in terms of where he can be drafted and the kind of money that he can make on this first contract. I think that he's got a legitimate shot at being there. And I don't know if you saw the photo of him that Notre Dame social media team posted on X/Twitter, but he ran with the spandex shorts and the shirt off, and he weighed in at 222. There's not a lot of body fat on Audric Estimé. Let's put it that way.
I did not see it, but I'm going to go over now and take a look.
Well, and you'll see we've got the video. We're going to play some of the video of his post-pro day press conference that he did. And it was one of these where we got to, everyone kind of circled up around him. So we got to stand pretty close to him. And just like he had his shirt on by that point, but he's very trim looking, like you talk about a big back and a power back and all that kind of stuff. There's power there, but he is chiseled out of granite is what he is. It's pretty impressive. Because we don't typically, get to like when we're doing the, post game interviews and all that different kind of stuff. It's a little bit different than literally standing right there when he's in his workout kind of stuff. So where you really get to sort of, see it up close and personal. Basically.
Oof. I just saw the video, the official video. He looked like he was burning in the white spandex.
He was ready to rumble. He
must have forgotten to take his morning deuce at the day of the combine. I think that's what it was. He just looks.
He was actually listed at the combine. He was listed at 221. He weighed in, according to Notre Dame today, at 222. So he was actually a pound heavier. I was wondering, would he try to, cut a little bit of weight, like drop 3 or 4 pounds, to run faster and that kind of stuff. Because Notre Dame's, the indoor, at the IAC where they run at, kind of has this reputation for being a slow track, but he did none of that. He didn't cut any weight. He was officially a pound heavier than he was at the combine, and he was moving, man. He was trucking. And what was amazing to me is like after he ran the first 5.4, he ran he ran this, they obviously all run it twice. When he ran the second one, we had him at 4.54 again. And I think it was like what I had said, what Ryan Roberts, I think, tweeted was 4.56 and 4.59, but the official time is 4.58. And just the fact that it is under 4.6, I think, is huge for Audric Estimé.
I do too. I think anything, going into the draft, I'm pretty sure his time was like, I think like his betting line was like 4.54 or 4.55. I can't remember exactly where it was, but when he ran that 4.7, it was just way out of the ballpark slow, what we were anticipating to see. And like, I didn't need him to run a 4.4 and I didn't need him to run a 4.3, but really 4.7 was like the only number you couldn't see on that paper after the combine, right? Like you could probably live with a middle of the range 4.6 somewhere, but getting this under 4.6 is just so huge again, because I think it knocks him up at least a round in the draft. I think there was a lot of drafts mocks that kind of had him around like the 5th or 6th kind of overall running back, and that would probably get him to the 3rd, 4th, maybe 5th round. I think now he's an early 3rd round type of guy, maybe late 2nd round.
There's enough buzz around him that I can easily see him going in the 2nd round. Maybe I'm just riding the high of that 4.54, but I've got a feeling, and like Michael is asking how much he raised his stock today. He said the bust Jerome Bettis ran a 3.7 at the combine in his day and had a pretty good career. Well, more than pretty good since he's in the Pro Football Hall of Fame, but he said it was Audric slipping with that same 3.7. He was definitely slipping. Like, again, he was going to get drafted, but now with a 4.58, just what you said right there, Jess. I think that I think his ceiling is the second round. I think his floor is early in the third round. I don't think if he lasts till the third round that he's going, much into the third round based on just, everything that I've seen and heard around him. Jesse's shaking his head. Okay.
I agree with that. What I'm more like caught up with right now is I want to know.
And remember, Jerome Bettis's 40 time, not to cut you off, Jerome Bettis's 40 time was 30 years ago. So it is a different era now, with different, sports science and everything else. So go ahead.
I just can't get the thought of, Mike McCarthy didn't even go to the combine day. And so I'm just really like enthralled with, if him and McClay were there, there's someone very specific on Notre Dame that is on their rate. Like those two don't show up for no reason. And so I know it's very selfish to think about, but we are still talking about where potential Notre Dame guys can go to. Those guys just don't show up for no reason. I guess I'm more curious. To me, it's got to either be Estime or an offensive lineman. And so I don't know if it's Fisher because they're not getting alt. And so are they looking at Fisher or what?
Just hold that talk. Hold that talk. That's rapid fire talk. Right.
Okay.
You're getting so far ahead of yourself right now. Let's hear from Audric Estimé. What do you say? Rolled a little bit of video today. Had the old, iPhone out. I actually recorded a couple of interviews with the players, and Blake Fisher will be one of them, where I just had the audio, and then I realized I can use the phone. I'm standing right here. It'll pick it up as well. So this is a few minutes with several questions with Audric Estimé after his big pro day today.
It's a much better 40 time today. What's your reaction to that?
Yeah, it's just something I knew I had in me. You got to take the good with the bad, and at the combine, I feel like I did well in everything, but I knew my 40 had more in there, and you just got to put that in the past and prepare for what's in forward, and I prepared hard for it, and I'd improved, and that's all you could do. All you want is improvement, and that's what I did today.
Audric, how do you feel about your 40 today?
I feel I did better, a lot better, but I feel like I'm very fast, and I feel like I could run faster, but the 40 is done with. I probably never had to run it again in my life. Time to play football, and that's what I do best, is play football.
What did the scouts or your team say about your 40, and what are they most looking forward to out of your game?
Yeah, so the scouts believe in me. They know I'm very athletic, and scouts watch film, and they say I have really good film, and scouts, I just spoke to them on the field, and they said I looked really good today, so that's all I could do is try to be my best, be the best version of myself, and that's what I did today.
How about the comfort level of going through the drills again with Coach Thielen, and how does that set you at ease?
Oh yeah, the comfort level was on an all-time high. Like I'm back home. I'm back where I did this. I've been here since I was 17 years old. I ran fast on this field plenty of times, and Coach Thielen, he's a big mentor in my life, and just being around him makes me feel comfortable. So I had a lot of confidence coming into today and doing those workouts.
You also had Sam right next to your side. Did that help a little bit?
Oh yeah, definitely. Just having Sam, having Joe Blake in my ear, because they weren't there when I was testing at the Indy, and having past guys like Joe Wilkins and AD, and even Jaden Thomas, who's not in the draft, but he's here just working. This gave me a sense of confidence and comfort, and it's time for me just to execute.
NFL running backs have to be versatile, more than ever. So what do you bring to the game that really makes you stand out?
Oh yeah, like I've been telling all these scouts and position coaches and head coaches, I believe I'm the best, most versatile back in the country. You got to pride yourself to be able to run the ball at a high level, pass check at a high level, and run routes today at a high level. And I feel like I put that on display today.
Did the time you had at the combine surprise you? Like, were you expecting more like what you got today when you were down there?
Yes, it definitely surprised me. Like I was training for the past 3 months. I was never even in that range, but you have some off days. I'm human. You just got to bounce back from that, and that's really how you judge, how you bounce back from adversity, and that's why I came back today and had a little better day.
What encouraged you to declare for the draft after I had a great season?
Yeah, so I felt like I was ready. I was ready to take the next step. I felt like I completed everything I wanted to on the college career, and I felt like it was time for me to play with the best of the best and be a pro, and it's time for me to be a pro.
Something NFL scouts didn't learn about you today that they need to know about you?
I feel like scouts in there, because I type of offense, I don't really run a lot of routes, but that's something I can do. I can run routes at a high level, and that's what I did today, and I believe that I showed them I can run routes at a high level today.
Were you surprised that they didn't put like another container so you could prove the talent that you could actually jump over defensive players?
No, I did get a little hurdle in today. I did jump over a cone, so that's great to put all my tools on display today.
All right, Jesse, were you startled by the gun show that Audric Estime put on in front of you there?
His side profile is pretty jacked, but I remember, when game day was here for the Ohio State game, McAfee made a very large deal of it. And so I knew at that point how big he was, because like McAfee is the type of guy where if you're jacked, you're jacked. Like he was enamored by how jacked Estime was. But like
he said he was hilariously jacked, were these
Right.
specific words. He was wearing Estime was wearing a Notre Dame basketball jersey.
Yes.
So it was basically, like a tank top, and the guns were on display for the game day and the Pat McAfee show that weekend.
But the more and more you see it, the it's just like you never believe it. The more you see it, you're like, this guy really is this jacked, right?
Yeah.
But it was just it was so cool to hear him talk about, overcoming kind of that time that he had and the ability to kind of wash it away, because it sounded like the 4.7 caught even him off guard, right? And I'm sure he even said all of his testing and training, he never was in that kind of, range of 40-yard times. And so, us as fans and spectators are obviously like, oh, what is this? And I think it impacts more of the player more than what we realize too, because he's trying to put on his best performance. But it feels like the ease or the comfortability of Notre Dame allowed him to kind of settle in, being there with Dylan McCullough, running through drills that he's used to, being in a familiar environment. I think that goes a long way with running a better 40 time. Maybe it was he was that much looser, right? He wasn't as tight. Maybe he got out of his start a little bit better because he was just more relaxed. Whatever it might be, it all added up to shaving off, 0.12, 0.13 seconds off of his 40 time.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't seem like a lot, but it's huge in terms of, because again, you're talking about a 220-pound plus running back who he can move. And it was interesting, but I wish I would have. I think I was telling you right before we started, I've got a little bit of video of some of the drills, like Sam Hartman throwing a few passes to some of the guys, and Joe Alton, Blake Fisher, that will play here in a minute. I was not thinking at all when Audric Estimé was right in front of me with Dylan McCullough going through these drills. I didn't, I wasn't videoing any of it, but he did. They had these, like trash cans out there. It was interesting that, like, you'll see, typically it is the position coaches from the NFL who run the position drills at these pro days. And like, you'll see some guys from like the Jaguars, the Bears, the Broncos, and some other teams with Fisher and Alt out there running their drills. But Dylan McCullough was actually the one who was in charge of running Audric Estimé's drills. And they had like these different stations, with the floor pad set up and, chop and hike, all that different kind of stuff. But he hurdled a trash can on one of the drills, kind of got a, from the crowd. So it was very interesting. He talked about his versatility. What do you think of him, like, in terms of his versatility? Because I tend to agree, especially for a big guy, he's got some pretty soft hands. He didn't have, like he said, he didn't have a whole lot of opportunities when he was at Notre Dame to show what he could do as a pass catcher. He got a few. Like, I remember when Sierra Wood a few years back had his pro day, when Sierra Wood, God bless him, when he was trying to, like, show that he could catch patches, it sounded like shotguns going off every time a ball hit the palm of his hands and then, bounced to the turf. Audric Estimé showed a couple of different times. He's got some pretty soft hands for a big guy, and he is also excellent in pass protection.
So I think what makes Audric Estimé really special is he's got the combination of, obviously he's a presence in terms of physical strength, like downhill, meeting you in the hole. He's a very strong and physical runner, but then also he's got like feet of like a ballerina. He is very good on his toes, and he's able, just as well as he is soft on his toes, I think he has soft hands. And so as a running back coming out of the backfield, what more can you ask for a guy that has really accurate soft feet, able to cut, read a linebacker, read a defense, and cut off of them, and then the ability to whip his head around and catch a ball, with soft hands that gets on him kind of quick. That's on him right
Mhm.
away. That's what you talk about in terms of soft hands is, a lot of guys can catch a ball just standing there staring at the quarterback stagnant, knowing the ball is going to come, but how can you catch the ball coming out of a break when the ball is already halfway there and you're getting your hands, basically the reaction time to let your hands just naturally catch the ball
Yeah.
is what Audric Estime is going to be good at. And so I agree with him that it is something I hadn't thought about and something that he wasn't very much utilized in terms of the Notre Dame offense is working out of the backfield, but he has the skill set to do those sort of things. And so I'm glad that the pro day allowed him to kind of show that he is a more complete running back than he is given credit for.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. And Mike Huff in the chat says it's considered a so-so running back draft. Most draft guys had Audric off their top 5 at the position because of that 40. I believe he's back in it, though. I
Yes.
absolutely agree with. He was definitely. And then, well, hold it. That was the wrong one. There was another one. I think someone was basically saying, yeah, I think it's the same. Mike, he's got him as his 4th running back now behind Jonathan Brooks, Marshawn Lloyd. Oh, he's got him as his 3rd running back. No, I'm sorry. He's just got the numbers out of order. That's what was throwing me off when I was trying to read this. He's got Trey Benson 1, Jonathan Brooks 2, Marshawn Lloyd 3, and then Audric. This is, like I was talking to those Colts guys I was talking about, running backs, they're obviously devalued by the NFL nowadays, but they're an afterthought in this draft, it seems like.
It does seem like the running backs are kind of an afterthought, but I mean, when you think about it, it is a so-so draft. Like the Benson guy out of Florida State, Marshawn Lloyd, I believe, out of USC, who I'm not, overly impressed with. I thought Audric Estimé, I think he's going to surprise a lot of people now that his 40 time is out of this 4.7 funk. I could see him, being the 2nd or 3rd running back off the board. I think it's just a preference of what offense you're in and where the pick is kind of at. Like things happen on actual draft day where guys get taken off of other teams' big boards, and you're in certain spots where you're like, what's the most reasonable pick here? Who fits, kind of our offense for what we need type situation. And I just, Audric Estimé's feet looked incredible during the individual drills at the combine.
And that's what I was going to say. Like his feet are so quick. He has so much agility, and I've said it before. His feet remind me of Marshawn Lynch, and the 40 time is only about 1/10 of a second slower than what Marshawn Lynch ran. Like if you're looking at comparisons and big backs and all that kind of stuff, there's a lot of. I've always thought that there have been, from the first time I saw Audric at the blue gold game, the first time he played in a blue gold game, and you really got the chance to see what he did. That's who he reminded me of right away. And I'm not saying that, he's a clone of Marshawn Lynch or whatever, but I think Lynch may be a little bit, more agile than Audric, but not a whole lot. There's a lot of agility in Estime for a guy his size.
I agree. And I believe, Michael Hahn brings up a really good point here. The NFL is so obsessed with the SEC speed as ESPN. They are a joke. I wouldn't necessarily say they're a joke, but I do believe that they get enamored in this so-called speed. And it's like, look at guys like Justin Ross and like that Washington wide receiver who ran excellent 40 times, in years past. And teams think that they need to find a spot for them on their NFL roster just because they're running 4.3, 4.4 type speed. It's got to translate into the game, and that's I think what Audric Estimé does best is his game just translates so well, right? And then the way he runs, like when he was at Notre Dame, he was a hit the hole and then break away from the pack type situation. He wasn't trying to outrun you on the corners. He wasn't trying to just use his speed to get by everyone. He uses his presence in the hole to get down hole, break a couple tackles because he's big, and then use that speed, that good speed, to break away from the pack, aka like NC State, a couple of those Duke runs. And that's what's going to make him different in the NFL. Is he's not in the NFL. You're not just going to be able to use speed to run by everyone. You have to be able to use, your ability to get creative in the hole, your ability to make the second level, your ability to get past the first tackler. And that's the type of runner Audric is. And so I really believe that his game translates well to the NFL for this reason.
Yeah, I concur. I definitely concur on that. DK, with his second valid point that he's ever made on this show, he says Audric is going to feast now that he won't have to share reps with 4 other guys. I bet his NFL team will take him out to kill a game. At least he's been tested for the NFL. I mean, that's the thing too, because like you get to the NFL, you're most likely you don't featured backs are not as much a thing in the NFL anymore. Teams are doing it with 2 guys, and he'll have more opportunities, obviously, than splitting reps. It wasn't obviously it wasn't a 25% type thing where he had reps with 3 other guys. But like, to me, I think it's good because you look at the fact he didn't play much his freshman year. His sophomore year, he did split reps with Logan Diggs, even though he ended up with a few more carries. But really, he's only got 2 years worth of true carries on his body, and he did get to split those up. So I think that's nothing but good for him because he gets out of Notre Dame in great health. And like he said, he's a football player. He doesn't have to worry about 40 times and all this other garbage anymore. He showed a legit time at 4.58, and now he can just focus on training for football, getting ready for training camp. All right. Get rid of that. Blake Fisher. Offensive line coaches from several different teams, as I was mentioning before, put Fisher and Alt through their paces. We got to see them, kind of move with their feet out of blocking stances, punch the blocking pads and that kind of thing. And we'll see some of that here in just a minute, but I'll let you hear from Blake Fisher first, and then we'll talk about it a little bit.
What do you want teams to see when they turn on the tape and look at you as a prospect?
Yeah, you see a dominant player. You see somebody that loves the game, smart player, high IQ player. Somebody that has a variety of different sets that he can come into the game with. Strong player, dominant in the run game, can dispose of anybody along that 3 technique, that 2-5 technique. It doesn't matter.
Like, what was the most important thing you wanted to prove today?
Yeah, just show my versatility, continue to show my versatility out of a left and a right hand stance. That strong punch, smart player, short area quickness, just all the things that you want to see in an offensive tackle.
What's something that NFL didn't learn about you today on the field that they need to know about you?
Man, I would just say that a lot of people know a lot of things about me. I mean, I continue just to show, what I can do today. Run blocking, pass blocking from a left and a right-handed side. So I think it just continues to show them that I'm a versatile player. I can play left, I can play right. I'm as equally as comfortable at both.
What were some of the things those coaches were looking for you, as you were going through those drills?
Yeah, a couple of them were, just seeing how we, open our hips, how we move around, how we bend, things like that. And then, just in pass pro, protecting the edge, strong hands, strong punch, and our short area quickness.
Like, what did you want to show today that you didn't get a chance to show in the combine?
Yeah, honestly, bench press. I didn't bench at the combine, so just be able to show that I'm a strong player, from the bench. But same thing like speed. There's a difference between weight room strength and field strength. But just being able to go out there and kind of complete the whole process. Finishing bench and then doing these drills was great.
If you could give yourself a rating of what you did today versus what you did at the combine, what would that rating be?
Man, I just try to come out here and give my all, give my best and everything. I don't really, give myself a rating at all. I think I did a great job out here and showed what I needed to show. All right, thank you.
All right, so that was Blake Fisher, and just to follow up here, Sloppy Joe, I think, was getting in late. He said, what did Estime run at the Pro Day? He ran a 4.58 today at the Pro Day, was his official time after running 4.71 at the NFL Combine last month in Indianapolis, so 4.58 today. Anything stand out from what you heard from Blake Fisher there, Jess?
Yeah, I think the number one thing that stuck out was the constant reaffirmation on his versatility. It felt like that was kind of, what he wanted to get, or emphasize to these scouts, and what the scouts wanted to really see out of him is he's not stuck in a mold of being a tackle on the right side. He can be, maybe a tackle on the left side. Maybe he can be a guard on either side. I think the versatility, and then he talked about, the ability to open up his hips, the fluidity, that's that's what teams are looking for at the NFL level. Guys who can move well. Can he be, a pulling guard? Can he move out in space? Does he have the athleticism to maybe play guard, center, tackle? Wherever they need him, I think that's important because I think Blake Fisher has the ceiling, or like he's like Play-Doh that can be molded into, whatever that team specifically needs him for on the offensive line. He's an athletic specimen. He's very talented. He's very gifted. But the thing about Blake Fisher, and everyone knows this, is what is that ceiling, and is he ever going to reach it given the frame that he has? But I think the number one thing that came out of this was the versatility. What can he do at a position other than right tackle?
I agree. So here's a little Fisher and Alt. This is Fisher and Alt. Alt is down in the stance. We watch a little bit of this on YouTube from earlier today at the Pro Day. Now this is Fisher kind of bouncing back and forth, moving his feet. I'm curious kind of what you like when you watch the footwork of these two guys, what you see. That was Alt. Here comes Fisher again. I mean, you can definitely see the power in that strike that Joe Alt has. I will say that.
Yeah, it feels like, when you're looking at footwork, you want to be able to see, can the linemen gain ground and also move their feet, while keeping their center of gravity, keeping their frame kind of underneath them, essentially. Do the feet follow the rest of the frame? And so, like, that's kind of like the main thing I'm looking at. And it just looks like, Joe Alt is a bit more under control, and he has a bit more of that kind of fast twitch to him of, explosion compared to Blake Fisher. But that's the main thing is at those offensive line position. Are you controlled under your frame? And then are you able to gain ground when you're like really kicking back and pass setting, etc.?
Yeah, I agree. And JLG was asking about some of the other guys testing, and I'll kind of run through some of the other test scores from today. I do think one thing. Blake Fisher on his 225-pound bench press did 22 reps today. I did think it was interesting that Paul Mawala, the local Penn High School product, who started his career, of course, at Notre Dame, went to Idaho and then finished at Georgia Tech, he did 20 reps of 225 pounds today. DJ Brown did 19. Thomas Harper had a pretty solid day with 18 reps. Maris Leofau with just 16 reps, which is a little bit low for a linebacker. And Joe Wilkins had 14 reps today. But Paul Mawala with a solid 20, while Blake Fisher had 22. Those were the only guys that I just mentioned there that benched today. When I watch Blake Fisher, I just still see a guy who, like you were talking about his versatility, he was talking about his versatility. And I think that that's probably what it's going to take. I think especially probably coming in the door in the NFL, like, is he going to be like a swing lineman? Like you said, like, would he be like a Tyler Smith, for example, like a college, or a Zach Martin, even, a college tackle who moves inside when he gets to the NFL. I thought he had, he showed some solid foot quickness in that video that we saw there, but Joe Alt, who's going to be a top 10 pick, had even more, I felt like. And that's huge for a tackle, obviously, especially in the NFL.
Yeah, I would agree. And like we were talking about with Blake Fisher, I just don't know if he has. I just really see him as an NFL guard right now, and
I do too.
I just think that he's not that he's slow, but you saw it in comparison there to seeing Joe Alt and him run through those drills. Joe Alt just looks like a little bit just quicker and a little bit more refined in just about everything that he does. And again, I don't think that's a knock on Blake Fisher.
No.
Joel is you could take him as a number one pick as any team and feel good about it.
But I guess my point, and again, this is not meant to be a knock on Blake Fisher as well, but when you see them side by side like that, and you're seeing a guy who is a top 10 pick, like it sort of shows you the difference between a guy who's going to be a top 10 pick,
yes,
and a guy who's going to be, second, third, fourth, somewhere in that range, most likely.
It's cool to see the live comparison of what elite looks like and someone who has the potential to still be there. Like
still
Blake
really
Fisher's
good,
still
but not up here.
Yeah, he's just not there yet. And that's what separates Joe Alt from Blake Fisher and a lot of these other offensive line draft prospects is Joe Alt is just one of the best in the nation.
Yeah. So JLG wants to know how DJ Brown tested, and I'll go ahead and go through some of DJ's. Thomas Harper, by the way, had a really good pro day today, and I'll get to him in a minute. But DJ Brown first, since that is what was requested. DJ Brown weighed in at 199 pounds. He bench pressed 225 pounds 19 times. He had a vertical of 33 inches. By comparison, Thomas Harper had a 42, just to kind of, a couple guys in the secondary there. Broad jump, DJ Brown's was 9.1. Thomas Harper's was 10.6. 40 time. Again, Audric Estimé, remember, ran a 4.58. DJ Brown, a 4.7. Thomas Harper, how about this for a 40 time? 4.48. He was moving today.
That is fast.
Yes. The 20-yard shuttle, DJ Brown, 4.37. Harper was 4.25. The 3-cone shuttle, DJ Brown, 7.04 seconds. Harper did it in 7 flat. So you asked about DJ Brown. I thought I might as well go ahead. And Harper also bench pressed 225 18 times. So I'd say DJ Brown had a solid pro day. Thomas Harper, though, when you look across the board, especially when you look at that 4.48, he really flashed today. Underrated pro
He's
day.
going to be on someone's roster.
Yes.
He's just got enough of the, the physical intangibles that a team can hope to work with here. And I think it's really cool. I will say, though, the 3-cone drill was one of my better drills back in the day.
Really?
Yes. 40 time was always average, maybe slightly below.
Yeah.
But I was always in the top percentile.
Gordy and Nutt was asking your 40 time.
I was in the top percentiles in the 3-cone drill, though. I remember that was kind of some of the places I went. That was the thing I was kind of good at. Like agility. I always led kind of like the linebackers at the 3-cone drill.
Yeah. Little, change of direction, all that. Stay, low center of gravity, all that different kind of good stuff. Absolutely. Absolutely. All right. Sam Hartman up next. And he was there. Notre Dame doesn't have any draft eligible wide receivers. So he kind of threw to it a little bit of an eclectic group of receivers today. He had former Irish receivers like Avery Davis and Joe Wilkins back in attendance. Joe Wilkins, who helped Miami, Ohio win a MAC championship this season. They beat Cincinnati, as he mentioned afterwards, but Avery Davis and Joe Wilkins there. And I'll get to some of their scores here in a little bit, but you also had current guys, Jaden Thomas, Jaden Greathouse, and Jaden Harrison, 3 of the Jadens out there. Harrison, of course, who just transferred from Marshall. Audric Estime caught some passes as well. And, I thought that Hartman looked pretty good when he was out there throwing. Jim Nagy, who is the executive director of the Reese's Senior Bowl, tweeted out that he received texts from several NFL scouts today who told him that they thought Hartman had an overall impressive throwing session today. But I guess I would ask you this, Jess, because this is a 6th-year guy. Was there anything that anyone from the NFL could really see today that you think would move them one way or the other on Sam Hartman?
Yeah, I do think there is something. I don't think it was going to change between the combine and the pro day. Sam Hartman needed to add like 5 more miles per hour to his to his fastball, aka his, the ball coming out of his hand. And I also think he needed to improve overall arm strength. Basically, can he throw the deep ball and can he throw it with accuracy? I think he's fine on routes 0 to 30 yards. But anything over 30 yards, I just, and that goes along with the velocity of the ball coming out of his hand. I just don't think he has enough zip jump, at the ball coming off his hand. And I don't think his arm strength is, compared to some of these other guys, NFL arm strength. And so I think that is something that would have, if he would have come out today and just threw, 40-yard, post routes on the dime, then yeah, I think it would have swayed some guys. But unfortunately, that wasn't what was going to happen today. Sam Hartman was going to show you the things that he's good at, and he was kind of going to shy away from the things that he's not so great at. And I think he did a good job of that today, reminding teams the things that he's good at. But again, he's not just going to grow, a cannon for an arm in 30 days or whatever it was since the combine.
Right. That's not going to happen. All right. Well, here's Sam Hartman after his day out there at Pro Day today at Notre Dame.
Assess, your process so far. Today, how was your season?
It's been surreal. I mean, I think it's one of those things where you've been in college for so long, you think it might not come, and then it finally does, and then you blink your eyes and it's already over. So I try to enjoy it as much as I can. It's something I look back on my time here and even at Wake. Sometimes I feel like I didn't enjoy it enough and take in those big moments, those big wins and moments with your teammates. So it's cool to be back here, be back in the locker room, just kind of hanging around, and just grateful for everybody that kind of got me to this point. And, excited for the future. It's kind of not the complete end of this process, but kind of the last really major event for everybody. So. Happy it went well and excited for the next couple steps.
Do you feel like you've proven what you needed to prove through this process?
I got two. That's just basically the same question. So
right.
That was sweet. For sure. I thought I did a good job. I think I wanted to show some drive. I wanted to show I can spin the ball at a high rate and really let some of the deeper balls go. And so that was kind of the plan. Try to execute and throw off different platforms and just really be very proficient throughout it. And I would just say let it rip. Sometimes you can get out there and guide it because you're trying to be perfect, but I just wanted to throw it as hard as I can, as far as I can, and see where it lands.
You seem like you were having a lot of fun out there today. Was the attitude just kind of come out, have fun, let it rip kind of thing?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think I don't know how you can't have fun when you're throwing the football. I mean, there's sometimes in games when you don't have fun and you get hit and everything, but when you're in T-shirts, I think that's like kind of a backyard mentality. I flew my brother up this past weekend. He's in med school down in Florida, and so he came and caught for me. So it's kind of just to visit him out there and making some catches, and so I got to give a big shout out to him for coming up and getting me prepared. So he was a pivotal part of this process, and so he's got some ND cleats now, and now he's playing intramural football, and got the ND gloves on, so he's fired up.
So we describe about the hair flip, man. People love the hair flip and love to see you out there, getting there. You gotta just how do you feel about it, all the noise going on inside?
I blame my mom. I debate cutting it, and I feel like if I cut it, then it's a bigger deal. So I don't know. We're just rocking and rolling.
Your mom likes the hair?
She loves the hair.
How would you describe your skill set as a passer, like inside the pocket and outside the pocket?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's versatility. I think playing for an offense that I played for at Wake, and then coming here, you kind of have both worlds of kind of off schedule and on schedule. And so, again, it's just trying to execute what you get told and playing with rhythm, playing with tempo, and just bouncing back from any adversity.
The hair flip, Jess. The hair flip came up at Pro Day today.
Unreal. No, but he talks.
I am kind of surprised he doesn't just wear one of those bands that holds it all back, like the Gardner Minshew.
Oh, he knows what he's doing.
That's right. And the blonde in the front row knew exactly what he was doing as well, I think. Go ahead. What were you going to say?
What I was going to say is Sam Hartman basically kind of said what I said midway through kind of that snippet that you played. He said, I wanted to come out here. I wanted to throw the ball deep. I wanted to show I could spin the ball. And again, that was to me the biggest question marks coming out of the combine. Was his deep ball good? What kind of zip does he have on the ball? And I think the best results you get are just coming out, having fun, and letting the thing, fly loose. And that's exactly what he did today. I thought he approached the day perfectly. I thought he had a game plan for what he wanted to put on display, and he did that. And will it be enough, to get him drafted, I don't know. He'll be on an NFL roster. I just don't know, if and where he gets drafted.
Yeah. So here's a few. Here's Joe Wilkins. Shirtless Joe. Catching a short pass from Sam Hartman. And I think that was Jaden Thomas on the other side. Here's Avery Davis stepping up. I'll talk about Avery Davis's pro day today. He put together some solid numbers. Remember he tore the Achilles. Here's Joe Wilkins again. Yeah, unfortunate drop for Joe. Here comes Jaden Harrison coming right at you. Marshall transfer. So these are all the shorter ones. The unfortunate thing is a lot of Sam Hartman's workout with the throws farther downfield were coming when we were interviewing some of the other players, like Blake Fisher, Avery Davis, all these different, like Hartman was still out there on the field, while a lot of that was going on. People asking about the blonde reporter. I've never seen her before. There were a lot of different, there were Indianapolis people there today. There were Chicago people there today. There were Chicago media who were ticked off that Marcus Freeman wasn't going to be doing, a press conference, so that they could ask Marcus Freeman about probably Joe Alt and Blake, whoever they happened to be. But there was media from a lot of different entities there today that I'd never seen before. There were obviously the typical, guys on the beat and stuff like that, but can't help you anymore with who some of the other reporters were. Sorry, guys and gals. I think the biggest thing with Sam Hart, I think you make a good point with, does he have the ability to get the ball downfield, at least show the arm strength to get the ball, down the field. But after 6 years, I just feel like what most of these guys need to see, they've already seen on film to some extent with Sam Hartman.
Yeah, Sam Hartman is what he is. He's got a large sample size, and he's consistently kind of put on tape, what he's good at and maybe what some of his deficiencies are overall. I thought working through a different style of offense this season really helped out Sam Hartman, because even if it wasn't perfect, it still, showed his ability to be a football guy, the ability to absorb a new offense and still execute it relatively well, considering, his offensive coordinator was a first-time offensive coordinator as well. And so neither of those things are easy for a guy that's, running a new system with a new offensive coordinator, and to have the success and to set some of the, offensive records, scoring records that Notre Dame did this season. Sam Hartman still performed at a high level. And I think, again, that goes back to some of the stuff he needed to show was, I'm not a quarterback who can only operate in this gimmicky offense. I can learn new offenses. I can be an NFL type quarterback. And again, I don't think you need to have some crazy cannon of an arm in the NFL. Like, does it help? Sure. But the main thing in the NFL is that the timing and the accuracy. Can you get it over the linebacker's head, but drop it in before the safety type throws, right? It's more precision and precise throws than just throwing a deep ball. So I don't think that sort of stuff necessarily hurts Sam. The only thing that I really concerned about with him is, again, just the velocity of the ball out of his hand. I think, because he can drive those out routes a little bit better. He can drive some of those, shorter routes better if he has better velocity coming out of his hand.
Yeah, and I think that for Sam Hartman, the other biggest question, like Mike is saying, Hartman is the new Chase Daniel. He's going to be back up for 10 years, making $5 million a season, playing 12 games. I feel it. And really that, especially early on in Sam Hartman's career, the biggest question for him, one, can he make a roster first, whether he gets drafted or signed someplace as an undrafted free agent? Can he make a roster? And then two, does he make the most out of the opportunity that he gets? Because look back at Ian Book a few years ago, and you can say whether it's fair or not, how much judgment you put on Ian Book, but you remember when Ian Book got his first opportunity with the New Orleans Saints, it was a disaster, right? And then the next year he ends up with the Eagles. Okay, he gets to go to the Super Bowl with the Eagles, even though I don't think he took a snap all season. And I know he was with the Chiefs for a time this year. But Ian Book is now in a place where he's dangling. Like, is his NFL career going to continue, or is it done? Is he going to have to look to, maybe to Canada or this, new United Football League or something like that to have an opportunity? I saw Jack Cohn is going to Canada this year. For Sam Hartman, it's going to be, once you get on the roster, you get a roster spot, there's probably going to be an opportunity that comes up at some point because someone's going to get hurt in front of you. Can you go in and adequately run the offense and basically not just, not have things blow up in your face because you're the guy out there on the field as the number 2 or number 3 emergency quarterback who ends up out there on the field on a Sunday in November? Can you adequately run the offense? Because if you do, that's going to earn you the next year. And then all of a sudden, you become Chase Daniel, 6, 7, 8 years down the road, or you're Mason Rudolph, who we talked about. Like, Mason Rudolph's going to have kind of some prove-it opportunities coming up now that Pittsburgh has completely restocked its quarterback room, by the way. But that's kind of what Sam Hartman is going into now. Can he, when he gets the opportunity to get on an NFL field, can he at least be competent running the offense, maybe even win a game or two, and essentially continue to earn himself spots on rosters going forward every time he gets out there on the field?
Yeah, there's nothing wrong if you're Sam Hartman with, I get it. Everyone's career aspiration is to be a starter. But if you're Sam Hartman, there's nothing wrong with being potentially a career backup guy or a guy who's able to bounce around from team to team and just be a reliable quarterback, a guy who can learn the system and be, maybe not excellent or great, but also, like you said, not be the reason why a team's going to lose. The ability to go out there and execute a game plan, get the ball to where it's supposed to be, make the reads that he's supposed to meet make the reads and audibles that he's supposed to at the line of scrimmage. And I think Sam Hartman,
not line up under the guard, when he goes up to the line of scrimmage.
And I think Sam Hartman can do those things. I think Sam Hartman is enough of a gamer and a football guy where he wants it enough to kind of figure out a way to work. I think he genuinely loves football and would do kind of whatever it takes to find his path in the NFL, whatever that might be.
Look at like Tommy DeVito this past season. Remember it seems like it's already been a million years ago, the DeVito craze that swept through New York and New Jersey when Tommy DeVito got his opportunity. But by doing that, DeVito's probably, he's earned himself some extra time going forward. So it's going to be interesting to watch how and I do agree with some of the people in the chat. Like, I do think that Sam Hartman, it's going to pan out longer term for him than Ian Book. So that comparison, I wasn't trying to say, I'm just saying Ian Book had an opportunity, but unfortunately he was not able to make the most of it. And he's on thinner ice now a couple of years later.
Yeah, I mean, the thing with Ian Book is kind of like what I was talking about. He's kind of a one-trick pony in terms of who he is as a quarterback. I think Sam Hartman has the ability to be like a 3 or 4 trick pony. I think he can do more things outside of the cookie cutter that Ian Book kind of was.
Mm-hmm. Jesse, are you ready for rapid fire?
I am. We're almost an hour into this thing, and
we are
still haven't even touched rapid fire.
Yeah, and we've got more Pro Day stuff to come in rapid fire. So hold on tight because it's coming at you right now. Fill in the blank. It's blank that Dallas Cowboys head coach Mike McCarthy and new Washington Commanders head coach Dan Quinn were the only NFL head coaches at Notre Dame's Pro Day today.
It is intriguing, and sorry for kind of chomping on the bit about this a little bit earlier.
Okay, I know you were excited to get here.
It's intriguing because of what I kind of highlighted earlier for maybe people that weren't around. Mike McCarthy didn't show up to the combine itself. Will McClay is like the prodigy in terms of scouting and, who the Cowboys are going to draft. The first layer is going through Will McClay. And then after that, it's kind of presenting it to the rest of, everyone else. And so what I'm getting at is, long story short, the Cowboys don't just show up for no reason. They have their eyes very specifically on, someone at Notre Dame. And what makes them more intriguing is they're a lower end, back end kind of pick. They're not like the Commanders, who have a higher overall pick, who might be in the running for Joe Alt potentially. The Cowboys are there strategically because of someone that fits the profile of what they're looking for. And so I'm really intrigued of who that might be, because I think the Commanders were ultimately there to maybe look at some defensive guys because of Dan Quinn, and then really to get in on the Joe Alt sweepstakes. But I really want to know if it's the Cowboys, who they're looking at. To me, they're looking at Estime and Blake Fisher. And I think Blake Fisher is intriguing because he can be moved across the line. They have a lot of, they just let go of Tyron Smith. They let one of their other guards go. They're looking for offensive linemen. And right now they have no running backs on roster as well. So I'm very intrigued. What are they going to do there?
D-Hawk says this show caters to Cowboys fans.
It just so happens that they were there. It's not my fault. He was there.
The Dallas Cowboys head coach and the Washington Commanders head coach, Dan Quinn, who of course was the defensive coordinator in Dallas for the last 3 years, but he was there. Like, I'm standing there, and we'll talk about Cliff Kingsbury here in a second, but Dan Quinn and Cliff Kingsbury literally walked right in front of me on the field as they walked in the building together. It's like, oh, hello, what's this? And then, I mentioned there's another guy who's a Cowboys fan who was there, and we were talking for a minute, and he's like, yeah, somebody said Mike McCarthy was here as well. And then the next thing I see Mike McCarthy across the field. And then the next thing Quinn and McCarthy are down there talking with each other. You're absolutely right. Like with the Cowboys, because the head coach and their player personnel guy were both here, there's someone very specific that they're looking at. And what we know specifically about the Cowboys is they have needs both with the offensive line and with the running back position to fill starting spots. Those are both high-end, high-priority needs. So I've got to think that, to me, it's got to be Audric Estimé, number one, that they're looking at. And they, if that's the case, they came away very impressed based on the combine or the pro day that Estimé had. Blake Fisher, again, you can talk about him as a guard. That's probably where I would see him on that specific line. And you probably, move Tyler Smith back outside to tackle with Tyron Smith gone. But two very specific needs. And for the command, here's when I start looking at, and we talked about Estimé and his potential for the second round. Here's what's scary for anyone really. You don't have to just be a Cowboys fan, but if you're an Eagles fan or a Giants fan. So here's where the Washington Commanders pick. And again, Dan Quinn was there and Cliff Kingsbury was there. So Washington, of course, picks number 2 overall, and everyone is expecting them to take a quarterback. So they weren't there, obviously, for that specific spot looking for a quarterback. But then you look at their second round where they've got a lot of picks. They pick number 36 overall, which is the 4th pick of the second round. Then they pick 40th overall from their trade with the Chicago Bears. And then they also, I think they have one other pick in the second round, or is that it? No, I guess it's just those 2 picks, but they picked 36th and 40th. They pick early in the second round. I would be shocked if Estimé goes past either one of those 2. Because again, the fact that the head coach and the offensive coordinator of Washington were there.
You're definitely looking on one side of the ball.
Yes. They're looking at an offense, and the fact that they have 2 high picks in the second round, I think for Audric Estimé, that bodes very well for fans of anyone other than the Washington Commanders. That doesn't bode very well, I don't think. So is that what you're thinking as well? Are you starting to think that Audric Estimé is going to be a high second round pick potentially?
I think he's solidly between rounds 2 and 4. Okay. That's where I put my range on Audric Estimé. I think he has the potential. I could see him being an early round second, like a number. How many picks are there overall? 32. I could see him being around pick 50, and then I could see him kind of falling towards maybe pick 100 towards, middle of third round, end of fourth round. I think 50 through 100 is my accurate kind of range for him. And I think someone else in the chat brought up a good point too when talking about the Cowboys. They do need linebackers. I just don't think like Maris Leofeld, they have that type of linebacker on roster. They're looking for more of a run stopper, kind of up the middle linebacker, who maybe that's JD Bertrand. But of course, they want to come out to Pro Day knowing that JD Bertrand is not going, to perform still. So do the Cowboys need a linebacker? They sure do. They need so, and Van Der Esch just retired as well. He medically retired. And so I do think that, I don't know if they're on Notre Dame, but they definitely need linebackers.
See, like people are saying that early in the second round is too high on Estime, but who are those guys they're looking at? Like again, like the fact that 2 head coaches and an offensive coordinator and a player personnel guy are all there. Like they're not looking at Joe Alt, like maybe the Commanders are thinking about Joe Alt. I don't know. Like if they decide not to draft a quarterback at number 2, or if they, decide to trade down, and like maybe try to grab Joe Alt ahead of somebody else and a quarterback, like depending on who they were to trade with. But it just, like the guys working out, like Joe Alt is the only first round pick that was at Pro Day today, right? And again, the fact that you had that high end NFL personnel there watching, to me, it says it's got to be either Estime or Fisher that they're looking at, both on the offensive side of the ball.
Yeah, and like, Dan Quinn, Cliff Kingsbury, Mike McCarthy, Will McClay, these are important people, especially right now with, everything that's going on with the draft process. They're not just, again, showing up to this specific day for no reason, right? And when you're heavy loaded with offensive staff, if you're the Commanders, and then you look at the needs of the Cowboys, I think there's 3 guys that like every team was looking at today that was there. Joe Alt, Blake Fisher, and Audric Estime. And where they fit into their draft schedule is completely up to them. But those are the 3 guys that had the eyeballs on them today, in my opinion.
Right. By the way, I didn't mention this earlier. Avery Davis, former Notre Dame receiver, was there. He, of course, his career ended, unfortunately, a couple years ago due to injury. He had a pretty solid pro day as well. He had a vertical jump of 35. He had a broad jump of 9.6. He ran a 4.56 40 time and a 4.37 shuttle time. So pretty good little pro day for Avery Davis. I'll be curious to see if he has any opportunities to sign as a free agent potentially someplace. All right. Cliff Kingsbury, as I mentioned, was also there as well. Former USC offensive coordinator, now the offensive coordinator for the Washington Commanders. He spent a few minutes talking with Sam Hartman at the end of the pro day. Do you think that means anything?
I don't think it means nothing. I don't know how much of a significance it means, but in terms of, a guy that is regarded as, a good offensive mind, a respected offensive mind, obviously that's why the Commanders hired him. And then his ability to kind of work with quarterbacks, I don't think it's a bad thing that he's talking to Sam Hartman. I think, whatever, maybe Sam Hartman was getting a bit of advice from him, maybe getting a bit of feedback from him, but whatever sort of conversation that they were having, I find it only to be beneficial to someone like Sam Hartman, given Cliff Kingsbury's background.
Yeah, I think so as well. Again, like, I don't think Cliff Kingsbury was talking about Sam Hartman because he thinks that Sam Hartman is their answer at quarterback going forward. But he coached for a team that played against Notre Dame, so he's seen him on film. He's seen him up close and personal, and he knows what kind of career Sam Hartman had. And, I think that at the very least that there might be, like some late round or free agent interest, something like that, where Sam Hartman could, end up in training camp with a team like that. But, like there's going to be, because of where Sam Hartman, where he falls in the draft, they're going to be like, everyone's going to have a chance at Sam Hartman. It's just going to depend on I'm sure he's had a lot of conversations with a lot of different guys. Fill in the blank. Joe Alt is blank.
Joe Alt is, in my opinion, the number one draft pick in this combine because you can take your chances at quarterbacks. Like I could argue that the Bears should have just traded their pick, drafted a tackle, and drafted Joe Alt and rolled the dice with Justin Fields. How much would having a good offensive lineman boost someone like Justin Fields' game? But I think in terms of overall safety and security, if you wanted to knock it out of the park, every team could use a player like Joe Alt. He's going to be a fabulous professional, and it is clear why he is the top offensive lineman in this draft.
To me, Joe Alt is the most sure first-round pick Notre Dame has had basically since Quentin Nelson. That's been, 7 years now at this point? This is the most surefire lock of a guy that Notre Dame can have drafted in the first round and will perform at that level once he gets to the NFL, just like Quentin Nelson. That's what Joe Alt is to me. And we saw him on Saturdays, obviously, and his stock has stayed very high. There's been no wavering on Joe Alt. Like, you haven't seen him drop off like what happens with a lot of guys once you get past the combine and all this different stuff, and you find reasons, to pick apart different guys and that kind of thing. Joe Alt is just, he's the most surefire first round, guy that Notre Dame has had since Quentin Nelson. Plain and simple. What did I miss, by the way? Like, what happened in the chat?
What do you mean?
I don't know. Speaking of offensive line, Sean Kelly had a question earlier. He said, regarding Tosh Baker, everyone knows Blake Fisher had an on and off year last season. With that production, is that what we could see from Tosh, or is that too high of a ceiling? I would just have to say TBD. Like, we need a little bit more. We need to see a little bit more from Tosh Baker. I think what we've seen from him so far has been pretty good. Maybe he exceeds that. He's been with Joe Rudolph for a year, so he's going to have an offensive line coach for more than one season. Which you went from Jeff Quinn to Harry Heastand for just one season, and then to Joe Rudolph. So I think that stability and kind of consistency is going to help him. But I think we kind of need to see how things play out this spring. But that is a spot to be looking at because, we were talking about Emil Wagner, needing to put on the weight and stuff like that right now. And right now, I would say Tosh Baker is clearly in front of Emil Wagner. But if Emil Wagner continues to fill out that frame, I will be curious to see what happens over the course of the summer, and do we see another shift in fall training camp like we saw last year when we thought we had a pretty good idea of what the offensive line was going to look like, and then it switched once camp came around. So I would say jury's still out. TBD on Tosh Baker.
I'll let you handle that one. I couldn't give quite an eloquent answer as you did.
Okay. Shift to a little bit of basketball. March Madness, of course, is here. Michigan State head coach Tom Izzo says automatic NCAA bids for mid-major conferences need to be reconsidered. He says, while everybody likes the early upsets, quote, I'm not sure that's true as it goes on in later rounds, end quote. So do you buy or sell what Izzo is saying?
I don't want to go too much into a rabbit hole of kind of my overall thoughts of the NCAA tournament, but what they have now, I do believe that if you're going to have as big of a field as you have, and you're going to allow this many teams to get in, every conference champion deserves to get in. Everyone deserves a shot, right? Like you shouldn't, it shouldn't just be you win your conference championship and that's enough. I do believe that should buy you some sort of extra opportunity. And that's why only one team, usually the conference champion from these smaller conferences, get the automatic bid. Listen, it's not, there's still an outrageous underdog in the grand scheme of things. And so if you're Michigan States or the Kentuckys or the Kansas or, whoever it might be, you can't really cry because you are still a better team. You are and that's kind of the whole premise of the thing. You got a high seed. You are better than these lower level teams. And so you just kind of have to deal with it. Do I think that some of these, Mid-American Conference champions are better than maybe some of the, middle of the pack or lower of the end Big Ten, SEC, ACC teams that get in? Sure. And they're definitely hotter and they definitely have more to play for. And so in terms of maybe like reconsidering the seeding, okay, I'm more on board with that. But leaving out conference champions, I'm not on board with.
Yeah, and I mean, it is part of the fun of the tournament is what happens in these first two rounds. So I can agree with him to an extent on what he's saying. Like, everybody likes the upsets in the first two rounds. Like Morehead State was giving Illinois a run for its money for a little bit more than a half before Illinois ended up pulling away earlier this afternoon. But, like, people want to see the upsets. That's part of the fun. It's like everyone fills out a bracket and who's got the brackets and, who's going to pick one of the better seeds and see them knocked out in the first or second round by these little darlings. You don't want to take away the automatic bids for the small conferences. It's okay. It's like, I'm just shocked that a longtime coach from a Power 5 conference, would be saying, take away bids from the little guy, basically, right? Because it's like, he wants more bids for the big conference and he doesn't want to see these little schools get them. It's like, they're one bid leagues for a reason, because they're in these smaller conferences and you've got to at least give them the opportunity, because that is part of it. Now, the other side of it is, like, look at last year's Final Four when you had Florida Atlantic and you had San Diego State along with UConn and Miami. It was one of the, lowest viewership, worst viewership Final Fours that we've seen in a long time, because you didn't have the Blue Bloods. And I saw somebody say you want the Blue Bloods by the Elite Eight. And that's usually what happens. You get a few upsets in the first round, but you have the big dogs by the time it's all said and done. You didn't have that last year. But look, most of these little guys are never going to actually compete for a national championship. They'll pull off an upset or two. Fairleigh Dickinson last year, knocking off Purdue, UMBC a few years back, knocking off Virginia, but they're not going to make a run for a national championship, but you're giving them an opportunity to get in there and play. Tom Izzo has actually won a national championship. So I find it a little bit much to hear someone like him who's actually won it all, has played in a big conference and won a lot of games in the tournament, to try to be taking away spots from the little guy in this situation. So the other side of that is there's continuing talk about expanding the NCAA tournament. Do you buy or sell that?
Big sell. I was good with 64. I was good with 68. I don't need any more. I think there's enough parity. I think enough teams get in. We have all the conference champions. Everyone is taken care of. And all of the borderline teams, today that a lot of people were like, like South Carolina, for example, a lot of teams felt, they shouldn't have been in. They got smoked by Oregon. I think you're going to, the more you expand, the more potential you create like teams who don't really belong. And I think you risk, damaging kind of the product overall. I get it. You want parity, but you still want good basketball at the end of the day. And I think the more teams you let in, you kind of, you're letting in more fringe kind of not elite March Madness type basketball, in my opinion.
Here's my compromise. And this is my annual pitch for this expansion. This is my idea on how you expand the NCAA tournament, because we've got 4 play-in games every year. And most of the time, these are double-digit seeds. Like every year, 2 of the 4 are a pair of 16 seeds, playing in a play-in game. And some people don't like that. They say, well, these 16 seeds should get a chance to participate in the actual tournament. Well, there's only been 2 16 seeds that have beaten a number 1 seed ever. And they've happened within the last, 5-6 years now at this point. You're actually giving these 16 seeds to compete against another 16 seed and actually have a chance to win a game. I can't remember off the top of my head. Was it Wagner? Like one of these schools just within the last couple of days, they got their first ever win in NCAA tournament history because they got a chance to play in a play-in game. So my idea is every double-digit seed from 16 through 10, 10 through 16, whichever way you want to look at it, all the double-digit seeds play a play-in game. So you match up all these double-digit seeds, and that way you've got full days of basketball on not just Thursday and Friday, but you've got more games on Tuesday and Wednesday with all these double-digit seeds playing as well. That's how I would expand the tournament. And that, to me, would give more of the smaller conferences chances to get more teams in the tournament as well. What do you think of that idea? You're still out on that?
Yeah, it doesn't really move the needle for me. I don't know. Maybe I'm true traditionalist at this point. I think 64 is the perfect number. The way it kind of breaks down, the Sweet 16, the Elite 8, the 4. I think the only way you could really do it is if you introduce kind of more play-in games to get into the field of 64.
Yeah. Michael says too many teams without breaks open the door to too many injuries. Well, don't forget, NC State played 5 games in 5 days at their ACC tournament last week. In the NCAA tournament, you're still going to have a day between every game. So, you're going to have a day off in between every game in the NCAA tournament, even as a play-in game. Like if you played on Tuesday, your next game wouldn't be till Thursday. And if you happen to win on Thursday, you wouldn't play again until Sunday. So I think it would be more excitement and more fun by doing that, by letting more double digit, smaller, the little guys in the tournament. I have no idea what happened to Derek. I'm sitting here and we're doing something, and the next thing you know, I see that apparently Jesse, flipped the block button.
I meant to put him in timeout as a joke, and I don't know if it accidentally kicked him. So I do apologize if that happened. He said Sam Hartman was better than Dak, and I thought that deserved a 5-minute timeout.
Oh, there he comes.
There he is.
He's out of
timeout. I was so worried. Thank goodness he is back. Just don't make any more absurd comments like that again.
I didn't know if something crazy actually happened. The next thing I know, blocked out of there. Man.
It says blocked, but I really, it was just a timeout. I'm glad because I saw the blocked and I was like, that is not what I meant to do. All good.
All right. Fill in the blank. It's blank that the Dodgers and Padres opened up the Major League Baseball season in Seoul, Korea this week. They played games at 6 a.m. Eastern time yesterday and today.
It is stupid. And the reason why I say it's stupid is why are they doing this a week before the actual regular season? Like, I don't care if they did this as like the appetizer, March 26, 27, but they're doing this like a whole week early and calling it, the start of the regular season. It shows it's really stupid. Like, I don't mind the games and the start time of 6 a.m. and where, the location and all that stuff. I just think it needs to be in closer proximity to the actual start of the MLB season, because now we have this week off and then the real MLB season starts back up. So that was my only gripe with it. It's like we're kind of, jumping the gun here a little bit.
Couple different things. One, it's stupid. That's my answer to the fill in the blank. It's stupid. But here's why. A couple different reasons. One, Major League Baseball did not do a very good job of promoting.
Yeah, horrible marketing.
Yes. Like, so few people knew that this was going on. And then, like you said, they played 2 games. Now they got to come back. Other teams are still in spring training. Actual opening day for everybody else is still, next week sometime?
Yes.
2, the fact that these games start at 6 a.m. Eastern time, but these are 2 West Coast teams. So that means that actual fans of those teams have to get up at 3 a.m. on the West Coast if they want to watch the Dodgers and Padres play to start off the season. 2 division rivals. Like, it makes 0 sense to me. 0.
I think the real topic of conversation today is Shohei Ohtani a degenerate gambler like the rest of us?
And
that should have been the real rapid fire question.
Wow.
Because to me, there's either one of 2 options.
Yeah.
1 or 2 options. The interpreter is just the fall guy and he's got some serious gambling issues. Or the interpreter really was, who they say he is. But I don't know. I still think there's a lot of question marks. But, I mean, we all know how this is going to go in the end. We'll never really know the true answer. I just think it'd be hilarious if Otani is really like $4 million in debt because of his gambling issues.
No kidding, man. It's going to be an interesting story to follow, like because that really came out of the blue as well.
It came out at like 6 a.m. this morning.
Yeah, that's right. Swallowed up everything else. Michael, man, it's like you've got some good takes, Michael, but Sam Hartman over Dak Prescott. I don't see that. I don't see that. Do you know much about these RAS ratings that Irish Gordian Knot is asking about? They are relative athletic scores.
Oh, yes, I have seen these. These are like shoot, I sent you this Cam Hart, I believe, his RAS score was like through the roof. It's just basically like taking all of your kind of
adding up the data,
intangible,
okay,
how you perform in a lot of different metrics, and then giving kind of a composite score of basically just giving, compared to every other draft prospect at your position, how you compare at the end of the day. And so it's not just only this draft class. It looks at the entirety of guys who have been drafted as NFL running backs, quarterbacks, whatever it might be. And then it compares you to them and then gives you kind of a rating. And I remember Cam Hart's was like basically through the roof.
Really?
Yes.
I'm sitting here and I'm scrolling down and I'm there. There it is, Notre Dame. So let's see. Wow.
Yeah, I can bring it up.
Chase Claypool and Miles Boykin both had very high, as did Kevin Austin, apparently. Very high RAS scores. Joe Alt, Drew Tranquil. I'm going in order. Equanimous St. Brown, Brady Quinn, Jerry Tillery, Rocky Boyman. Some interest, like Quentin Nelson's was fairly low. That's interesting.
Here we go.
Like in comparison to those other guys that I just mentioned.
Tab. Here we go. Can you bring that up?
There you go.
So this is, again, you have your height, your weight, your bench, your vertical, your broad, your 40-yard dash, your 20-yard split, and your 10-yard split. And, it says athletic testing is on a scale of 0 to 10. And his overall RAS score is a 9.82 out of 10. Like that's pretty phenomenal, or pretty fantastic, phenomenal, fantastic, whatever you want to say. But it's just, again, to me, it's like a big overall, how athletic are you compared to everyone else at your position?
Okay. I'll have to do some more looking at that. Like I said, I'd never really delved too much into that. Joe says, I guess we have learned not to compare anyone to Dak. I mean, you can compare like Kirk Cousins to Dak. That's one thing, but come on, you can't compare Sam Hartman to Dak. Come on, that's not a comparison. That's just a joke. That's just a joke is all that is. You guys know that. Come on. All right, well, that's going to do it for today. We will have a Friday show tomorrow.
Is it just you and I?
I don't know. Is Vince here? I know Vince can't do next week. Is he here with us tomorrow? Or
I don't know. I got him confused. I think we'll all be here tomorrow.
He's, with him and his spreadsheet, I can't even, I don't even try it.
Usually it's me and the spreadsheet. I have a hockey game tomorrow night, so we got to be, quick and
out on the
snappy.
ice. Okay. All right. So hit the like button before you leave. Subscribe, rate, and review. Joe said he was making. I mean, I had a feeling you were, but he said he was making a joke. I had a feeling, but sometimes you never know.
What'd you think of the new hat today?
Can't
Did you notice this is a Notre Dame hat?
It does look good. I wasn't sure if you had that before or not. Where'd you find that?
Got this for my birthday.
Nice.
Green, and then it's got the gold shamrock and a blue ND in the middle. So the latest addition to the collection.
The answer is yes to DK and Salty. 5:00 Eastern time.
I thought we said no more stupid comments, DK.
I remain unsalted. We'll talk to you tomorrow on IB Nation Sports Talk.